Good evening and welcome to another Northshire Presents virtual event. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm Rachel Person, the Director of Events for Northshire Bookstore, with store locations in Saratoga Springs, New York and Manchester Center, Vermont. Thank you so much for being here and for your support of independent bookselling. Please visit us at northshire.com to check out this evening's event book. I'll post a link in the chat in just a few minutes, and to see our list of other great events coming up soon in both stores and online. Throughout the evening, please use the Q&A box that you'll find at the bottom of the screen to ask any questions that you have. We'll save them up and I will pose them for you at the end of the evening. I'm so pleased to get to introduce Cuong Lu this evening. He joins us to discuss his new book, Happiness is Overrated: Simple Lessons on Finding Meaning in Each Moment. He is a Buddhist teacher, scholar, and writer, and was ordained a monk at Plum Village in France under the guidance of Thich Nhat Hanh. In 2000, he was recognized as a teacher in the Liu Quan line of the Linji School of Zen Buddhism. He is the founder of Mind Only School and leads retreats and gives Dharma talks in Europe, the US, and Asia, and online. He is the author of The Buddha in Jail, Restoring Lives, Finding Hope and Freedom, and of Wait, A Love Letter to Those in Despair, for which we hosted another virtual event back in the spring of 2021. Please join me in welcoming him to our screens this evening.
Thank you very much. My dear friends, I'm so happy that I have this occasion to share a little talk with you. Dear friends, it was about 25 centuries ago, the Buddha discovered how important suffering, how important suffering is in your life. And he called suffering as a noble truth, suffering as a noble truth. And about 20 years ago, I started to talk about the first noble truth, not as suffering, but as happiness. I call happiness as a first noble truth, because I have discovered how important it is to be able to recognize happiness in our daily life. I have discovered how important it is to see your happiness. Your happiness is so important for me. So important that I can say it is even more important than my own happiness. When I see your happiness, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to see that, oh, my friend is happy now. My wife is happy now. My son is happy now. That's why I call it a noble truth. It is noble, it's so important truth. And many people, they are quite surprised to see me mention happiness as the first noble truth, because the Buddha said suffering is a first noble truth, and now Cuong Lu says happiness is a first noble truth. So they want me to explain about that. And it's like this. When you look deeply into your happiness, you have a chance. You have a chance to discover your suffering. And when you look deeply into your suffering, you also have a chance. You have a chance to discover your happiness. When you look deeply into the suffering, you see happiness. And when you look deeply into your happiness, you see suffering. It means you cannot separate, you cannot take out, you think suffering is only suffering. That's not true. In suffering, there is happiness. And when you say in happiness there is only happiness, but that's not true. In happiness there is suffering. That's why I'm so happy to see your happiness. But that doesn't mean that you have to be happy all the time. When you suffer, it's okay too. When I see you suffering, I'm happy too. I'm happy that you are able to show your suffering to me. I'm happy that you trust me. I'm happy that you love me enough. You trust me and you love me enough. And to come to me to say, darling, I suffer. And that is very fun. That is love. It's love. So I love you when you are happy. Of course, I love you a lot when you're happy. I love you so much when you're happy. But when you suffer, it's okay too. Darling, I know you are suffering. It's okay. And when you look into me, when you are there and you look deeply into Cuong Lu, what do you see? Of course, the first answer is, of course, I see Cuong Lu. But I am much more than Cuong Lu. If you look deeply into me, you will discover my teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh. So I say, hello, Cuong Lu, how are you doing? And you say hello to Cuong Lu. You are getting contact with Cuong Lu. It means you are saying hello to Thich Nhat Hanh and getting contact with Thich Nhat Hanh too. And you can see my father too in me, and you can see my mother too in me. When my mother was passing away, I was there and I said to her, Mom, I will live for you. I will breathe for you. I will eat for you. I will smile for you. I will cry for you. I will live for you. So if you want to go, please go. I will live for you, Mom. And the question is, of course, when I say, when you need to go, please go. And where does she go? Where does she go to? And to me, my mother went home. My mother went home. And I say, if just go home to see Grandpa. He loves you so much. So just go home. And you will meet Grandpa when you are home, when you're at home. And I will live for you. It means in Cuong Lu, there is, in me, there is a home. If you want to see my mom, I can see her in my home. If you want to see my father, I can see him in my home, at home, or my teacher. I say, hello, teacher. I'm home again. I'm here with you. So that there is no separations between Cuong Lu, his teacher, his father, and his mother. I call that connection. Connection. When you're able to get connection with your father, you are getting connected. Get the connection with your mother, with your teacher. And when you really get in touch with your happiness, you are getting in touch with the happiness of your father, of your mother, and of your teacher also. Dear friends, when someone is coming to you and showing his suffering, you must know it is not only her suffering, his suffering. This is also the suffering of his father, of his mother. my suffering is also the suffering of my teacher. If you look in that way, you will get you are able to get connection with the suffering of the person standing in front of you, but you are also getting the connection with the suffering of his father, of his mother too, of his ancestor too. In each of us, we have a home, and in each of us we have roots, and in each of us we have connection with all our ancestors. So that is why we when we have the true connection with the other person, you are having the true connection with all his ancestors. That is a wonderful way to learn to know someone, You are not only one person. And if you look deeply into one person, you see whole life too. You see the whole society. If you look deeply into me, you see the whole Vietnamese society too. I was born in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, and when I left Vietnam, I discovered I brought the war with me, and that's why when I met my teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, and I knew this person can help me to understand the war in me, the suffering in me. And so I became a monastic disciple under his guidance when I was 25 years old. And before that, my father passed away. And of course, I had a question, where are you, Father? Where are you now? And thanks to Thich Nhat Hanh, I was able to practice, and slowly at a certain moment, I discovered my father. I saw my father. And of course, when you ask, where is he, Cuong? Where is your father, Cuong Lu? And I can say to you, he's in me. My father's in me. My mother's in me. When my teacher passed away last year, I cried a lot. I cried so many days. But I knew at the time, I already knew I am my teacher. So I'm happy to continue his work. So when someone is showing his suffering, he is showing not only his suffering, that is the suffering of his ancestors, of his friends, of his society, and we should not be afraid for the suffering. Happiness is overrated because we think that when we want to live happily, we need to run after happiness. But please have time to discover suffering, because suffering is so interesting. That's why the Buddha said suffering is the first noble truth. Suffering is the first noble truth. And when we have the time to understand suffering, and you are able to understand your friend, but you are able to understand his whole family also, his roots also. We should have time to understand each other. And that is not possible if you want to be happy all the time. Because happiness is really overrated. And happiness is so important. Your happiness is so important for me, but your suffering is so important for me too. we can say, oh, I'm so happy to see, to see your courage, to see that you have the courage to show the suffering to me. And that's okay. In all my books, I have written that suffering is not a problem. Because when the Buddha said suffering is the first noble truth, he didn't say suffering is a problem. It's not a problem. It's a first noble truth. So the first thing, that's the first thing. The second thing is I have discovered that because in our daily life, we often think that suffering has on cause, a cause of suffering, and we have another cause for happiness. So we run after the causes for happiness. We collect the causes for happiness, and we don't like the causes for suffering. That's what I mean with happiness is overrated. Because we think if you have a lot of causes for happiness, like you think money is a cause for happiness, is a condition for happiness, and like sex is another cause for happiness. So if you have a lot of money, a lot of sex, we have a good life. And we don't like the causes for suffering. But I have discovered in my practice that happiness and suffering, they have the same cause. It means if you don't understand the cause of suffering, you cannot understand the cause for happiness. That's quite interesting. It means I say in a different way, if you don't understand your wife's suffering, you cannot understand her happiness. It's the same for you too. If you don't understand your suffering, you cannot be happy. So that's what I mean with happiness is overrated. It doesn't mean that happiness is not important. But happiness doesn't have on cause. It doesn't have. A true happiness doesn't have a cause. Or you can say the cause of happiness is always the cause for suffering. That's very interesting. So instead of running after, spend all your time to run after happiness, please have some time to sit down and to say, hello, my suffering. And the moment you can say to your suffering, hello, my suffering, how you doing? And you're free from suffering. That's interesting, right? Because you don't have to fight against suffering. Say you go away and you run after the cause of happiness, and the moment you see suffering, you have a chance. You have to chance to understand suffering, but you have a chance to understand happiness also. So you need to be very patient when something is coming, and when you see that, say, hey, it is there. I want to see it. I want to see you. I want to have time with you. Hello, suffering, how are you doing? It's not a problem at all. You don't have to run away from your suffering. But instead of that, you can say, hey, how are you doing, suffering? How are you doing? Please tell me more about yourself. And so I have learned so much about my happiness by having time for my suffering. That's my practice. To have time, space, and understanding for suffering. If you love someone, you you only can love that person if you have time, if you are able to be there for her or for his suffering. And if you're not there for his or her suffering, you are not loving. There's no love in you. And no love, it means there's no wisdom, there's no insight. So don't run after happiness only. You need to have time to understand suffering. And you need time not only to understand life only, you need to have time to understand about your death too. Dying is as important as living. Dying. Like suffering is as important as happiness. Suffering is as important as happiness. And death is as important as life. The question is, where do you go when you die? After your death? Because if you don't understand your death, you cannot understand your life. Your life becomes very short. Your life is quite short if you don't understand death. And you think, oh, it's so short, so I have to enjoy it. I have to run after happiness in my life. I have to be happy in my life. And the result of that thinking is you are afraid for suffering because life is too short. You want to be happy in your life. You don't want to suffer in your life. But like I said, if you don't understand suffering, you don't understand happiness. When I was a kid, I discovered that as a kid, I left my country. I brought the Vietnam War with me. And now sometimes I still recognize it in my life, the world, the Vietnam War in me. And now I'm able to say, hello. And I also see in me many dead people. Like in me also. Like in me, they say, you can see my teacher, my father, my mother, and many others people who have been killed during the Vietnam War, and they are also in me also. That's death. You need to understand life. You need to understand death. And one day, Cuong will die also. That's not bad news at all. On one day, and if you want to meet me, there's a way to do that. You just make a phone call and you call my son. I want to talk with your father. Oh, okay, he's passed away, but I am my father. If you talk with me, you're talking with him. Because if you look deeply into my son, you can see me. That's my death. That is and when you look and when you look deeply into me, into you also see me. When you're reading my book, and if you want, you can read my books with my eyes, Cuong Lu's eyes, because Cuong Lu is there when you're reading the book. And Cuong Lu is there in you. Cuong Lu is there in his children. Cuong Lu is there when he's still alive, reading a book with you, but Cuong Lu is there when he's dead too. That's death. So so by understanding the death, you understand the true connection between us. I'm giving this talk, I'm sitting here in Holland, but I'm with you too. And we are getting in a beautiful way. We are connected now. We are connection now. And what I'm telling you is, I'm not disappeared after my death. I'm still there. Where you can find life, you can find me after my death. That's true for you too. We should have time to love each other more, because we are interconnected. There's no way to disappear to after your death. You are there in everybody. I live with so many people in me, and I will live in each of you too. In my books, in your reading, in your life, even you know me or you don't know me, I am in connection with you during my life and after my death. So that's about death. It's beautiful, and certainly you discover life is not short anymore. You have a lot of time, and you are yourself. But after my death, my son, my children, my friends will enjoy life for me, and that's okay. Because that I am them. It's okay, and I'm so happy to see when they are happy. We'll be very happy when they are happy, but when they suffer, it's okay too, because their suffering is my suffering. I love your happiness because your happiness is my happiness, but your suffering is also my suffering. I will be there with you. I will ask you, are you suffering? It's okay, my son. I'm here with you. When you suffer, I suffer too. We should not be afraid for suffering. We should not be afraid for death. And we should have time to enjoy happiness. We should have time to enjoy life. I have written the book Happiness is Overrated to encourage you to discover yourself in a complete way, as the complete happiness and suffering together. They have the same root. And life and death, they have also the same root. Don't run after happiness, don't run after life, and don't be afraid for death. If we need to die, please die. Die is okay. When I die after my death, you will live for me. I'm not afraid for death. I'm not afraid for suffering. That's why my life is so complete. That's why I can enjoy life. That's why I can cry. That's why I have time to listen to your suffering. I have time to listen to your pain, and I want to help. I have been help many people to discover that it's okay to suffer. And sometimes you suffer for 20 years, and every time you try to run away from that suffering for 20 years, and when you meet someone who say it's okay, Don't try to run away. And within 20 minutes, you can discover that suffering you have is very healthy. And thanks to that suffering, you understand yourself and you understand other people too. It's okay. It's okay to suffer. Don't be afraid. I want to share that small insight with you. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
So if you have any questions, audience, you can put them into the Q&A box that you'll find at the bottom of your screen, or if you're having trouble with that, you can also put them in the chat or send me a direct message. And I have one question that has come in already from Angela, wanting to know, what do you do when the suffering of your ancestors becomes overwhelming?
The suffering of your ancestors
is too much.
It's never too much. It's never too much. If you are, if you can say to your ancestors that I want to understand your suffering. I know it's very painful, but I'm here to understand your suffering. I want to listen to your pain. I can listen to your suffering, and if you approach the suffering with compassion, with your courage, with your compassion, with your insight, and you have the deep confidence in your insight too. Because in you there is insight, there is wisdom and compassion, and you say, thanks to wisdom, thanks to insight, I'm able to listen and to understand your suffering, and I know that in the suffering, by understand the suffering, I can understand the joy and happiness too. So please tell me and show me your pain, and when you are able to get in touch with that energy of pain with such a courage, with such self-confidence, with such a deep love, with compassion, it's never too much for you. It is too much for you because you don't have confidence in your insight. You don't have the confidence in your compassion. And I do have confidence in your insight, in your wisdom, and in your compassion. So I know you can hear, you can get in touch with that suffering. It's never too much. The suffering is so beautiful when you are able to understand, to embrace the suffering of someone you love. Thank you.
Steve would like to know, what do you do when there's a loved one who is suffering but doesn't want to share their suffering with you?
When your beloved one doesn't want to share suffering to you, it is because maybe he's wanting to protect you. May think that he may think that suffering can be too much for you. So you need to encourage the other person to share suffering by being open to suffering. And one of the techniques you can use is you are able to share your own suffering to the other person, to show the other person that you have the capacity to understand suffering. When you're able to share the suffering, the other people will see, oh, he understands about suffering. He understands his own suffering, and certainly he can understand my suffering also. So and sometimes you don't need to say anything. Your presence, your calmness, your way of being, you are showing the other person that I am able to live with suffering. I'm able to see that in suffering there is happiness. And your way of being, your way of practice, your way of your calmness will encourage the other person to change the way he is communicating with you. He or she will have more confidence in you. So maybe in the past you were not open to suffering, to your own suffering, not open to just own happiness. That's why she or he didn't dare to